Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and get the webinar started today. Thank you all for joining, and thank you for your interest in Temple's Department of Bioengineering. We're excited that you're all here today to learn about our graduate programs. As I mentioned before, we're still waiting on one more faculty member, but I'm sure he'll be joining momentarily, but I don't want to hold anyone up. Just a couple of housekeeping items. If you could just hold your questions until the end of the session, you'll have the opportunity to ask questions of all of our panelists and faculty members, and we are recording this session for future viewing, which I'll send out later on this week. So you'll be able to refer back to this at any point if you need to, and it'll also be posted to our website. So thanks again for joining, and I'm going to go ahead and get started. So these are the participants joining today. So myself, my name is Colleen Bailey. I'm the Director of Enrollment Management. We're also joined by the Department Chair, Dr. Peter Lelkish, one of our Professors of Instruction, Dr. Ruth Ochia, Chetan Patil, who will be joining us hopefully in a few minutes, and finally, last but certainly not least, Dr. Nancy Plushko. So I'm just going to give a little bit of an overview about Temple Engineering as a whole, and then you'll get to hear from our faculty about the department as well as some of their research. But Temple's College of Engineering was founded in 1969, so we recently celebrated our 50th year, which is very exciting. And the College of Engineering has a little over 1,700 total students, both undergrad and graduates. And the nice thing about it is that we have a fairly small graduate student community, and what that means for you as a graduate student is access to a lot of mentoring opportunities with our faculty. So you really get the best of both worlds by being at Temple Engineering, because as a smaller college, you have all of the benefits of being in a close-knit community with all of the benefits of attending a large major research university in a setting like Philadelphia, which offers you lots of opportunities for collaboration, for exposure, and working with some of our other schools and colleges like the College of Medicine, the College of Public Health, as well as, again, access to numerous peers studying in many different disciplines. We're a fairly diverse College of Engineering. We're 25% female, which is above the national average for colleges of engineering, and 37% of our students identify as non-white, and we also have students that come to us from throughout the globe. We have just under 200 international students, about 175. The Department of Bioengineering has a little under 300 students, 276 total, the majority of whom are undergraduates. And we have 35 graduate students currently in the department, both studying at the master's and PhD level. These programs are almost 50% female, which is very exciting, and also very diverse. 36% of our students in the program are non-white, and there's also 13 international students currently pursuing either their master's or their PhD. For those of you who are interested in pursuing the master's degree in bioengineering, it's 30 semester hours total to complete the degree. Excuse me, on a full-time basis, the program typically takes about 2 years to complete, and on a part-time basis, it varies student by student, but average length to completion on a part-time basis would be anywhere between 3 to 4 years, depending on how you're able to fit your classes in. But know that there are part-time and full-time options available for those of you who are working professionals. The master's program is highly specialized. It requires 2 to 4 core courses followed by elective and specialization coursework, and you can really tailor that to what your professional goals and what your research interests are. There's 3 separate degree options available, which I'll talk about in just a little bit, but there is a coursework only option in which you take 30 semester hours worth of courses, so that would be 10 classes. You can also pursue a project option, which would be 9 classes for 27 semester hours, and then 3 project hours. And for those of you who have an interest in research, there's also a thesis option, which is 24 semester hours of coursework, so 8 classes, and then 6 semester hours worth of thesis. So the project option is typically completed during the last semester of study, in which students would conduct a semester-long research project under the supervision of a department faculty member. And then students would then present their findings at a department-wide seminar at the conclusion of that study. A thesis option, and this is ideal for those of you who maybe see PhD studies in your future, is typically completed during the last 2 semesters of the master's program. And this involves both a formal research proposal and presentation, and then you would have a final thesis defense at the conclusion of your study in an open college seminar. This isn't something that you have to decide immediately upon either applying to the program or entering into the program. A lot of students find that their interests do evolve, so you do have some time to start out in the program, take classes, and then kind of figure out which of the 3 options best fit what your goals are.
Colleen, are you taking questions? I see there's a hand raised.
So if you want to hold your questions until the end of the session, we'll have the opportunity to ask questions then. Thank you. So for those of you who are interested in PhD study, this is also highly individualized, and students will work with the department's graduate coordinator or your dissertation advisor to discuss and outline what the best plan of study for you is. Now, students can enter this program either directly with a bachelor's degree or with a master's degree. So there's two different options available. And you're not any less competitive coming with a bachelor's degree as opposed to a master's degree. Really, the only difference would be the length of completion to the degree. So for students entering with a bachelor's degree, it's 60 semester hours to complete. So you're looking at 45 semester hours worth of coursework, and then 15 semester hours of your PhD exams and then dissertation research. If you're coming with a master's degree, it's 30 semester hours beyond the master's, so 15 semester hours worth of coursework, and then 15 semester hours worth of dissertation exams and research. And then, as is the case with all PhD programs, this program would culminate with your dissertation proposal, research, and then final defense. If you're interested in applying to the program, the application is accessible online at apply.temple.edu/engineering. And we are waiving the application fee today for those of you who are participating in the session, and we'll be sending out instructions on how to receive the application fee waiver within the next few days. That will also include the recording of this session. You'll need to submit official transcripts from all colleges and universities attended, and unofficial transcripts can be submitted in lieu of official transcripts for the purposes of application review. And actually, we are highly, highly, highly encouraging students to send unofficial or electronic transcripts due to issues surrounding COVID, because we are still working remotely, and this allows us to speed up the application review time. We're only, those of us only really check the mail maybe once or twice a week on campus. So it's much easier to send things electronically, either through your university's registrar's office, or if you send us, again, an unofficial web printout that you're able to access on your own. We do require the GRE exam, and those results should be sent to Temple using the code 2906. For those of you who are interested in the master's program, we do consider waivers of the GRE on a case-by-case basis. So after submitting your application, please contact us on how to potentially apply for an application fee waiver, a GRE waiver. For those of you whose native language is not English, you would need to submit results from the TOEFL or IELTS exam, and we also do accept Duolingo scores as well. Now, if you are an international student and have pursued education in the United States, either your bachelor's or your master's degree, the foreign language exam is waived for you. Students should also submit 3 letters of recommendation, and those should ideally come from academic or professional sources, such as former faculty or your current employers, for example. You'll want to submit a statement of goals and your most recent resume and CV. Now, for those of you who are interested in the PhD program, you are highly, highly, highly encouraged to contact potential faculty advisors prior to application, and then also discuss that in your statement of goals. That's very important for doctoral admissions. In terms of application deadlines, all of the programs admit for both the fall and the spring semesters. So we're actively reviewing applications right now for the fall 2021 start semester. You'll see that the deadline has passed for consideration for university fellowships. However, the deadline is coming up in the next few days to be considered for departmental funding. Now, we will consider applications beyond the January 15th funding date. However, just note that funding may not be available to you at that time. So it's always best to apply by the application deadlines that are noted here. And most funding tends to be available for the fall semester. However, you can see here we do accept PhD applications for the spring start, with the application deadline being August 1st. For those of you who are interested in the master's programs, we have a June 1st deadline for the fall and December 1st deadline for the spring. And if you're an international student applying for the master's programs, you should apply by the dates listed at the bottom of the screen there. So March 1st for fall and August 1st for the spring, just to allow for enough time to get your application processed, and if you're admitted, to go through the visa processing application as well. So these are Temple's tuition rates for the 2020-2021 academic year. We're not, the rates for next year should be available in the next couple months or so, but this will give you an idea of what the tuition rates are for this current academic year. So for Pennsylvania residents, the charge is $1,135 per credit hour. So total cost per class is around $3,400. Most classes are 3 credits. And for non-Pennsylvania residents, it's a little under $1,500 per credit hour. For purposes of financial aid, all of our PhD students are considered for research and teaching assistantships, again, university fellowships, and these typically provide tuition funding, a stipend, and health insurance. And additionally, there's also need-based federal aid available for those of you who are US citizens or permanent residents. For MS students, a limited amount of merit-based scholarships are available, and on a case-by-case basis, some MS students are considered for departmental funding as well in the form of either a research assistant position or a teaching assistant position. Again, there's also need-based federal aid available. And also, if you're working full-time and looking to go to school part-time, you should check with your employer's human resources department to see if they offer any type of tuition assistance or tuition reimbursement. I'm just going to pause real quickly here because it looks like we do have some questions that have come in, and I want to make sure I address that. So one question is, if you come in with a master's degree on a college not from Temple University, how would admissions work? How does the 30 credits beyond the master's work in this case? So in that case, Michael, it doesn't factor in whether or not you went to Temple. You would still complete the 15 semester hours worth of coursework and then 15 semester hours worth of dissertation research. It would just be working with your faculty advisor to come up with an appropriate plan of study. And then how does the PhD program work if you make the fellowship or funding consideration deadline? Does that mean PhD students have to pay their tuition? So all students who apply by the funding deadlines will be considered for funding. And we typically notify students. I know the application deadline for, I know the university is currently reviewing right now for university fellowships, and that those decisions are typically made, I want to say, in the beginning of February, I think. So the department will notify you if you do receive a university fellowship or a research or a teaching assistant position. It doesn't necessarily come with your offer, but you would be notified usually a few weeks later if you received any type of funding. And we had a couple questions come through the chat. I applied for a PhD in mechanical engineering. Can I apply for a PhD in bioengineering too? So yes, in some cases, students do apply to 2 different programs. That is possible. And again, you would just, like Dr. Pleshko mentioned, you would just need to submit. It would be 2 separate applications and 2 application fees. So with that, I am going to stop sharing my screen and turn it over to Dr. Ochia, who's going to talk a little bit more about the Department of Bioengineering. So you should be good to share your screen now and take it away.
Sorry, I was muted. So hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to share the screen over here, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what bioengineering and biomedical engineering are, because I get this question a lot. So what's the difference? So biomedical engineering or bioengineering, it's all taking biosciences, life sciences and stuff like that, combining it with engineering. So we're applying engineering processes and stuff like that to a living system, or at least a biological system, and that kind of covers bioengineering. It's a larger umbrella of biomedical engineering. If you add human health, medicine, that's when you start talking about biomedical engineering. And so you may hear some programs called biomedical or bioengineering, but that's basically the difference between the two. Do they have medical applications or not? And so basically what we're doing is we're taking more traditional engineering aspects and applying it to a living system. And that's what bioengineering is in general. And so it is an interdisciplinary type of application for your engineering principles. And so it touches everybody everywhere. So if you have or know somebody who has fillings in their teeth or contact lenses or glasses or any sort of pacemaker or something like that, that's all bioengineering. So it does touch many aspects of health, and that's its purpose, especially for biomedical engineering, is improving human health and well-being. If you're looking at biomedical engineering, it's prosthetics, it's heart-lung machines, so it's devices, it's implants, it's processes like drug delivery systems, so not the drugs themselves, but how do you get them into the body so they're as efficacious as possible. So many things are bioengineering, and it just depends on your interest. So bioengineering has a lead society, and it's the Biomedical Engineering Society, BMES. And so all programs deal with that lead society in terms of mission, code of conduct, ethics, and stuff like that. So if you want more information, then I highly suggest you go to bmes.org to find out more about our elite society. So here at Temple, we are looking at the intersection of research and education. We're here to train you to be good researchers, and so you can train others to be good researchers as well. So you're not trapped with people here in bioengineering. So if you have somebody that you're interested in working with and they happen to be at our hospital, Temple Hospital, which is about 2 miles north of main campus, you're quite welcome to work with that, and we'll work with you within the faculty so that you can do research at the hospital, Fox Chase Cancer Center, other engineering programs, because there are other people who are not in bioengineering that do bioengineering research. So don't feel like you're trapped with the list of people that we have for our faculty. So our program is relatively new. We started with a graduate program in 2012 and an undergraduate program in 2013. And we have, as you can see, 17 faculty, a nice variety. I'll show you a picture of all of us in a second. And Colleen had mentioned our breakdown of our students, so I won't go over that again. But here is pictures of all the faculty that we have in bioengineering, faculty and staff. So anyone with kind of red titles, they are our tenure track research, scientific research faculty. And you can see both Dr. Pleshko and Dr. Lukish, who you'll be hearing from later. Anyone with kind of a yellow ochre color are our teaching faculty, and then those with a black label are our staff, who we love a lot. For this particular eye chart, if you're interested, it's looking at our research faculty in terms of traditional bioengineering disciplines like biomechanics or imaging or something like that, with different modalities and therapeutic focus. And so if you're interested in working with a particular faculty member, you can use this chart to kind of say, I'm interested in biomechanics and I'm looking at neuromechanics, who's interested in that? And you can kind of say, oh, there are 3 faculty members that are interested in that. And then you can go and contact that faculty member showing your interest, or look up some papers or other literature that they may be working on. So our faculty are funded by many national funding agencies like NSF and NIH, as well as lots of different foundations. And so we get funding in a lot of different areas, and we are very research active, probably the most research active program in our college. As Colleen was mentioning a little bit about our program and what degrees we offer, we do have an ABET accredited bachelor's program. We have the master's. We have an accelerated master's program where we have people who do undergraduate with us and then do a 1-year master's program, and then also the PhD program. And we are a Research 1 university, so highest rank for research by Carnegie. Follow us for those social media mavens out there. We're on Facebook, Temple, and I think that's Instagram. I'm not a social media maven, so I'm not quite sure what that symbol is. We're at Temple BioE. And here's just a picture of, I do believe it's a senior design day in the building, Cirque building, which is the building right next to our engineering building. And so I'm going to stop my share, and it's going to, whoops, nope, not new share, stop share. And I'm going to let our next speaker go.
Is Peter next?
Yeah, Peter's next. He's got to unmute yourself, though. Unmute yourself, Peter.
I thought it's Nancy next, and I go last.
We're doing alphabetical. Go, Peter, go.
Okay, let's see whether it works. Hold on. You see my screen?
Yep, you're all set.
Okay, just 1 second. Now I'm set much better. Okay, let me talk a little bit, not as a chair, but this time as head of a lab. And this lab is called the Integrated Laboratory for Cellular Tissue Engineering and Regenerative Medicine. And it is unique in the sense that it has not only me in there, but we have two other faculty members who actively participate in our research, Yael Harel and John Gerstenhaber. So hold on, let me move this aside. So tissue and regenerative engineering, just a quick word about this. So for tissue engineering, you can define as the combination of using cells, materials, and signaling factors to engineer complex tissues and organs ex vivo, outside the body, for research purposes, for understanding drug interactions, and also for understanding the developmental biology, how a tissue is being generated in the body. And then when we apply all this knowledge in vivo, so then we have what we call regenerative engineering. So in this sense, then we use this knowledge gained in tissue engineering to engineer a system that can help to replace and regenerate functional tissues and organs in situ. And we have in our laboratory, we pursue a number of major research topics, and I will address a little bit of this. So we talk about smart scaffolds and bioreactors as a platform technologies. And then we use microgravity as a venue of interest in which we can try to generate optimized tissues. We work with stem cells, and we generate out of these stem cells organoids, both for in vitro studies, but also for implantation. We use three-dimensional bioprinting as an approach. And then we also use computational modeling systems to analyze what we have generated. So in terms of scaffolds, let me define scaffolds as biological active materials that can support cell and mature tissues. Cells and scaffolds come in all different kinds of forms and shapes. We have electrospan scaffolds that have dimensions of nanometers, and then we can also generate large. Sorry. We can also generate larger scaffolds, and that we, for example, that we do use oriented scaffolds for neuronal regeneration and spinal cord injury repair. So the technique that we use, and I'll talk about this in a few minutes, is called electrospinning, in which we can generate nanofiber scaffolds. And nanometers 10 to the -9 meters. So this is about 100 times smaller than a hair. So I'll show you an example for this later. And then we also, in order to make these scaffolds, we generate them in a form that they can interact with and modulate our immune system. And then in this case, these smart scaffolds can contribute to wound healing and to optimizing stem cell cultures. We use what you can see here. We use a technique called freeze casting to generate oriented scaffolds for neuronal guidance and for spinal cord injury. We have generated sophisticated bilayered scaffolds for dental applications, and we use hydrogels and 3D bioprinting to generate structures for other purposes, such as for bone regeneration. So, and told you about microgravity. So we have developed our own bioreactors for microgravity. We specifically, these are custom-made rotating wall vessel bioreactors here. And with these patented bioreactors, we can generate organoids. Specifically, we are looking into retinal organoids for restoring vision. We are looking for organoids for cancer organoids, for cancer biology, endocrine organoids for liver and lung, and for studying osteogenic differentiation. Now, in terms of stem cell biology, the conventional aspect is you take a stem cell and then you can differentiate it into all kinds of tissues that we are doing, for example, osteocytes and all, for bone regeneration, cardiac myocytes for heart regeneration, hepatocytes for liver regeneration, and neuronal, for example, retinal neuronal stem cells for brain and then for neural regeneration. A specific case of stem cells that we are working with are induced pluripotent stem cells. So these are not embryonic in nature, but you can take any kind of cells of the body, like blood cells, and turn them into reprogrammed cells that are stem-like. And then these IPS, these induced pluripotent stem cells, can have similar capabilities to differentiate, like the embryonic stem cells, only they don't suffer from the ethical and political problems that stem cells have. So here, for example, you have a organoid that we generated from embryonic, from pluripotent stem cells, and this is a typical retinal organoids in which you can see the structures developing in our bioreactors, which are very similar during early stages of embryonic development when the retina is formed. So these organoids mimic developmental processes, as I told you. You can study what contributes to normal and disease development, or you can also develop them and use them eventually for studying biological processes inside the body and outside. So we have these stem cells, we have these organoids that developed depending on the germline. We can have lung or liver organoids. We can build ectodermal for skin and retina and cancer organoids. One particular aspect that we are looking for in the microgravity studies is not only the microgravity in outer space, but working with NASA, we are looking at partial gravities when we go back to Mars or go back to the moon and then further to Mars. And so we have developed a system and using a system that can mimic these partial microgravities. And then we are starting to understand how these partial gravities will affect cellular responses. And as one of the interesting byproducts, we are looking at countermeasures because we know that microgravity inhibits bone and muscle development and muscle performance. So are there any countermeasures? And we found that phytonutrients, plant-derived nutrients, are very suitable for mitigating altered gravity effects on osteogenic differentiation. And with this, then again, back to what we are trying to do best, namely to understand mechanistically what is gravity sensing and what is the mechanism that lead to the sensitivity and to its disturbance. And so we doing engineering approaches to this sort of questions as well. Finally, we use a technique that I mentioned before. This is electrospinning, in which you take a polymer in a solution and apply it to an electric field at high voltage, and then out of the polymer solution, as the solvent is evaporating, we can generate small fibers. And not only do it in a traditional way, but we also developed another aspect in which we promote this process by introducing an airstream, and this is called blow electrospinning. And in both cases, the results are very small fibers. And here you have the system. So this one here is a normal human hair. It's about 100 microns in diameter. And these are electrospun nanofibers, which are about 100 to 1,000 times smaller than the diameter of your hair. And what can we do with this? We can use these fibers, for example, as wound dressing scaffolds. And for this, we developed, Dr. Gersnaber, our faculty developed a handheld electroblowing system, a system in which you can, now forget about this. Let's see, can I go back? Yes, let me try it again. A system here in which you can apply directly onto the skin these nanofibers, and I hope you can. Let's see, the system works. Yes, now it works. So what you can see, and this is a time wrapped video, you can see that within a minute or so, you can apply a wound dressing to the skin here with this device. And so this is one of our lab meetings on Zoom, and here's the members of our labs. So this is Dr. Harel, this is Dr. Gersnaber. These are our students here in the lab. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Dr. Lelkish. So you're going to want to stop the screen share so that way we can turn it over to Dr. Pleshko.
I did.
Great, wonderful. So Nancy, you can go ahead and take it away.
Okay. Okay, let me put that up there and I think I have to switch this for my two screens. Okay. Okay. So, hello, everybody, although I do know some of you, but nice to meet the rest of you. So the lab, so I'm a professor in bioengineering. I've been in the department for as long as Dr. Lelkish, which is about, I think it's 9 years now. And my lab is called the Tissue Imaging and Spectroscopy Lab, or TISL for short. We're interested in developing and applying spectroscopic methods to investigate tissue composition in a variety of scenarios. Our primary focus is on musculoskeletal tissues. Thus, you see here the pictures of bone and a knee joint. And we investigate tissue development, tissue degradation, and tissues that have been treated with therapeutics. So it's kind of the whole range in a variety of different types of projects. So I'm just going to talk briefly about two of the main projects that are ongoing in my lab and what it involves in terms of the engineering aspects. So again, vibrational spectroscopy is the technique that we use primarily. And so these methods can be non-invasive and can be non-destructive, and they're really useful for understanding tissue composition. We do a lot of work in tissue engineering of cartilage, some tissue engineering of bone, and also in animal models that range from very small animal models like mice, transgenic mice, all the way up to a mini pig model of a cartilage defect that we're doing with our collaborators at UPenn. And we collaborate a lot with different labs just because some of the techniques that we use are state-of-the-art methods that aren't available in a lot of places. So for the tissue engineering project, which I'll talk more about in another slide, the aim of that project is to be able to evaluate tissues as they're growing in your biohood and try and get a better understanding of their composition, so we essentially know when are they ready to be implanted in an animal model or eventually in a person. Okay, so this is our real bench to bedside project that is ongoing and is NIH funded. Another project which is ongoing and we've also been interested in for a while is focused on bone. And I saw there was a bone question in the chat. So we're not specifically interested in implants or designing implants, but we are very, very interested in bone health and bone quality and bone composition. And so we are, for example, in this one project, we're looking at the strength in the femoral neck, which is an area of fracture in osteoporosis patients and in people as they age. And we're trying to understand how changes in those properties in the bone lead to reduced mechanical properties, and if by adding in information on composition in the bone, if we can kind of add that in to other risk, fracture risk parameters, will that help improve prediction of fracture risk? So in order to do that, we collaborate with, again, it's a UPenn collaborator who does MR imaging, and we're looking at doing finite element modeling based on their MR images and trying to predict mechanical properties. And so this is just kind of a little example here of some of our spectral images. So these images are just based on information from our spectroscopy techniques. This is an MRI image, and so we do things like register images from our techniques and from the MR techniques, and also again do mechanical testing and develop new types of mechanical tests to estimate properties that are physiologically relevant. So that is ongoing. And then the other project, which I'll talk about in a little more detail, is right now we're in kind of an end phase of it, but it may have some life renewed into it depending on what happens post-COVID and how straightforward it is to kind of do more on this. But basically, this is the cartilage tissue engineering project that I spoke about. And so we're essentially looking at this long life cycle of tissue engineering, but we're using cartilage as the tissue. But this can be applied to any tissue that you engineer. And the idea is that you might harvest some cells from a part of the body that you want to repair. And then, so this is what we do, and these are chondrocytes, cartilage cells. They're harvested. We then make our engineering constructs on a scaffold and seed them in a variety of different ways, spinner flasks, or just with methacrylate gels in between gel plates. And then the constructs are grown in vitro and over 3 weeks to 3 months, depending on exactly on what is being grown and how it's being developed. But the part of it that's new is that we do our non-destructive assessment in these experiments, and essentially collect spectra from these constructs as they're developing. And the spectra give us unique information about composition, and then we can make a decision about, is it time to implant these? Have they developed enough? And we have several publications related to this and are in the part of this project now where we're actually implanting these in animal models. And then the idea is we can get information on, say, collagen content of these scaffolds before implanting and then after implanting, and kind of understand if the ones we predicted would do better actually do better in an animal model. And also towards that part of the project, we're also interested in designing fiber optics to do this. So as you can see right here, this is a near IR fiber optic that is commercially available. It's just connected to a spectrometer, but we're also doing some design of our own fiber optics, and that is also in collaboration with Dr. Patel's lab. And so if he doesn't end up getting on the webinar here, I'm not sure if he's here, I can just tell you also just a little bit about his lab, where he does a lot of work in tissue optics as well, which is kind of much more advanced than we're doing, but we do collaborate a lot. And he does development of Raman spectroscopy applications, both microscopic and fiber optic. So we have in my lab, this is, I think, from 2 years ago now, but we have a lot of undergrads in the lab doing research and helping out all of our grad students. And we have right now 1 postdoc in the lab, and we had 2 to 3 PhD students over the last year. And we really like to, work with a lot of enthusiastic students, and I'd be happy to take any questions about what we're doing and your interest in the lab. And that is all I have for now.
Great, thanks everyone, and thank you to our faculty. At this time, we'd like to take any questions that you all may have. You can type those either in the Q&A section of the webinar. If you hover your Zoom controls over, if you have your mouse over the Zoom controls, that should come up, or you can also put them in the chat. Real quickly, I'm going to share my screen again because I want to show the contact information for everyone. So everyone should be able to see that. And please let me know if you don't. But here is how to get in touch with all of us through email. Again, I'll be following up with all the participants after the session to let you know how you can access the fee waiver as well as the recording. Apologies, it looks like Dr. Patil was not able to join us, but you can see, you can email him with any additional questions as well as any of our faculty panelists here today. So again, any questions that you have, please feel free to type those in the chat or in the Q&A. And it looks like we have one that just came through here.
Colleen, I just want to say Chathan's email has a typo.
Yeah, I saw that. I'll type that appropriately. Hold on.
This is why he didn't come.
So the appropriate email address is in the chat now. So again, any questions you have, you can throw those in the chat or in the Q&A, and we'd be happy to answer them. And some of the questions that came through, and I typed these in the chat, but I'll just reiterate. For those of you applying to the MS program, once your application is complete, you can usually expect a decision within about 1 to 2 weeks is the typical turnaround time. PhD review, tends to take a little bit longer because it's a much more careful review process for that program, especially checking on the availability of faculty advisors and so on. So that typically can take anywhere from, I think on average, the department usually gets decisions turned around in about 2 to 3 weeks or so. At certain times of year, it does get a little bit busier, but 2 to 3 weeks tends to be around the appropriate time frame for the PhD program as well.
Yes.
Okay, so Colleen, I just want to say that our admissions process is a little bit different this year, just because of general COVID related things at the department level. And we're going to end up waitlisting more students than we have previously as we try and figure out if there's funding for them, because we don't want to admit a student without being able to say you will have a TA or RA support for the first year. So that's what's happening, and a lot of the funding is delayed. So I'm just saying anyone who applies, you may end up seeing a wait list, and that's what that is. That doesn't mean no, you're not admitted. It likely means that you have the qualifications to be admitted, but we can't find funding for you yet.
This is specifically for the PhD program.
Yeah, for the PhD program. Yeah, not the master's program. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Thanks for clarifying that. And there was a question that came in correct. There is no interview process for the MS program. Usually for MS students, typically at least a 3.0 and then a quantitative GRE of at least the 50th percentile is competitive for admission. Another important thing to note for the MS program is that it does require a bachelor's degree in bio or biomedical engineering prior to enrollment. If you have a different degree, like let's say, for example, it's in mechanical engineering or the biological sciences, please contact us beforehand, because there might be some classes at the undergraduate level you would need to complete before moving into master's level courses. And so we have a question, do the department accept related areas to the bioengineering area? Yolanda, can you clarify what you mean by that, if you mean by related majors to bioengineering? I just want to make sure I address your question appropriately.
Yeah, I was assuming it meant like biology or electrical or something like that, but I don't, and that if so, they may need to do prereqs, but.
Yes, that's right. So it's best to contact us before you apply if you're coming from a non-bioengineering or biomedical engineering major. So chemical engineering. So yes, so email me if you have a copy of your unofficial transcript, please send that along with it. And that way I can ask the department for their feedback to see if there's any prerequisites that you might need to complete for bioengineering. Another question, is the GRE optional this year for PhD applications? We are still requiring the GRE for the PhD program. However, if you do want to be considered for a waiver, please contact us and we can ask the department if they're willing to consider that. We do understand that due to COVID restrictions and other issues, that it might be difficult to get official test scores, in which case we're accepting unofficial test scores. But at this time, we are still requiring the exam itself. But if that becomes difficult for you as well, contact us and we'll see if we can work with you on that. So missed the last 1 to 2 minutes about admissions decisions, waitlisting because of COVID-19, what's happening. What was discussed, Michael, is that the department is waitlisting some more students this year because the availability of funding isn't known at this point. So what that means is if a student gets waitlisted, they meet all the requirements for admission. We just want to wait and see what type of funding is available before extending an offer. Hopefully I summed that up correctly from our faculty. Great, wonderful. And another question, is a GRE waived for 4+1 students? Yes. So if you are accepted to Temple's +1 program, if you're a Temple University undergraduate student, then you do not need to take the GRE. And you would work with Sean Fagan to apply for that program.
And I'll just answer I'll answer the question about the wait list. How long could it take? It could take a few months.
We have to clarify our budget for academic year 21-22. Once we know that, we can make decisions. I mean, many schools have simply stopped accepting students for next academic year. So in this sense, we are a bit more optimistic.
Here's a question, what about interviews? When would we find out if we're being interviewed? Would any of you happen to know that?
I think the interviews are along the same lines. Okay, so I think the timeline is going to be you're either accepted, which would be, or if, you know, from when you apply, from when the application is completed, you would either be accepted, I would guess, within a month or so, or waitlisted, or not accepted, and that would all be within about a month is when we've been doing that. And if you're waitlisted and haven't received a request for an interview, then that could also be a few months.
There's another way of contacting students with an interview, namely if you apply and you qualify to be proposed for an institutional fellowship, a presidential or university fellowship, and then you are awarded this fellowship, then we, in the past, we have invited you to come to the campus before you have to make your decision, so that we can encourage you to make the decision for Temple. And this was usually in late spring. Right now, given the travel restrictions, I think that this will be done by Zoom So there's no, right now, no in-person interviews are happening.
It looks like we got another question that came through the chat. Any research in temple involving bones and implants? I think I saw that maybe answered before, but if someone wants to take that
Yes,
again.
right. I mean, with us, the dental school is our closest collaborator. So there are two faculty members, in Dr. Orego and Dr. Yang, Maobin Yang.
Yeah, I put Dr. Orego's research link in the chat earlier. But in our department on May campus, there isn't anyone. There might be, I don't even think in mechanical engineering, I don't believe anyone is doing that.
I mean, Dr. Jacobs is doing exoskeletons, but not specifically bone implants. And he's an ME.
Okay, Michael, I just repasted the link that Dr. Pleshko has sent before that you can access that.
Yeah, and Dr. Orego is Bio-E faculty also. So he's, you know, with any faculty member, you can always reach out to them directly, you know, saying you'd like to learn more about their research. And, you know, I think that most of us reply pretty quickly when we get those requests. So yeah, I would definitely reach out to him directly. Colleen, do you want to talk about the Presidential Fellowship? Or?
Sure, so there's a variety of fellowships that the university provides. So this funding is coming from the provost office at the university level rather than the College of Engineering at the department level. So there, the Presidential Fellowship provides full tuition funding, a stipend, as well as health insurance. They're highly competitive, but the College of Engineering has a good track record of getting a few candidates those fellowships each year.
I just posted Maobin Yang's email address. So if you're interested, the second member of the dental school, who is also Bio-E faculty, Dr. Maobin Yang, he specifically is also interested in endodontics and periodontics and bone implants.
And Mike, oh, you found it. Okay, I was just about to send it to you. And our website, I know you saw our social media and our email addresses, but the Temple's website, as well as the College of Engineering's website, engineering.temple.edu, has all the most up-to-date resources. And again, while we can't have you on campus, there is a virtual tour available of the College of Engineering. It's actually given by one of our undergraduates, but it's a good way to kind of see our facilities. And if you go to our website and follow the visit links, that's where you can access that. Okay, so while we don't have any active questions, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, but we can stay on and address any additional questions for the next few minutes or so. Again, as I mentioned before, I'll be sending out the link to the recording as well as instructions for those of you who have not yet applied, how to access the fee waiver. But I want to thank everyone for participating today. I hope you, found this session enjoyable and informative, and best of luck to you. And we hope we see you all at Temple in the future. And please continue to wear masks and social distance, because we'd like to get back on campus, and that involves a team effort. So please stay safe in the meantime, and we look forward to seeing you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you all for participating.